Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us, coming to you from Washington's premier indoor shooting facility. Of course, that's Security Gun Club right here in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, I have been fielding a question with a great deal of frequency in the last few weeks. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that certain people are living in certain states where they can no longer purchase some of the most popular platforms of firearms and other accessories that might be necessary for their inalienable right of self-preservation. So they've been asking, hey, what if I just go out of state, buy whatever I want or need, and bring it back to this state? Is that legal? Now, you can imagine that if I was going to do this on the state level, there would actually have to be 50 separate videos because each state would treat everything a little bit differently. But as it turns out, no, actually, there's federal law that governs all of this, and it's governed all through the FFL process. I think you all need to be aware of it so that you might be able to save yourself the road trip, okay? So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about, can I buy a banned weapon out of state and bring it home? Okay, so here is the scenario. You live in a state that no longer supports or recognizes your inalienable right of self-preservation. You live in a state that has banned assault weapons. You live in a state that bans the sale of any firearm that holds more than 10 rounds. You know, you live in Illinois, Maryland, California, New York, Washington State, and a few others. So the question that I've been getting, and I'm not going to tell you where the questions came from, but is what if I just drive out of state, pick up the weapon that I can't buy in my state anymore and bring it back home? Now, depending on your state law, there's probably a pretty blatant violation the minute you cross into your state with that firearm. Take, for example, here in Washington State, our unconstitutional but still alive assault weapon ban says that you cannot import any assault weapon into the state of Washington. So if you drove down to Portland, Oregon, if you drove over to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, purchased an assault weapon, there's nothing unlawful about the purchase necessarily, depending on how the application of federal law is. But the minute you cross back into Washington, yeah, you're engaged in the illegal act of exportation. And I'm sure that many other states are going to also define that as well. But what a lot of you may not realize is hey, listen, if you live in Colorado and you decide, hey, I'm just going to drive to Utah and buy whatever I want over there and bring it back, yeah, there's a high probability, in fact, it's almost guaranteed, that the FFL, well, they're not going to sell you the firearm. And even if they are willing to sell you the firearm, you're going to be dealing with an FFL back in your home state, and they're going to make sure that this is in compliance with all state and federal law. You see, a lot of people don't know this, but FFLs will, that there is a big fat piece of federal legislation sitting right on top of every FFL that tells them exactly how they have to handle out-of-state purchasers. And since every FFL that I have ever encountered is always an incredibly lawful and reputable FFL, I can assure you that they will be following the law. 18 United States Code Section 922B3 reads as follows. It shall be unlawful for any licensed importer, manufacturer, dealer, or collector to sell or deliver 3. Any firearm to any person who the licensee knows or has reasonable cause to believe does not reside in, or if the person is a corporation or other business entity, does not maintain a place of business in the state in which the licensee's place of business is located, except that this paragraph A shall not apply to the sale or delivery of any rifle or shotgun to a resident of a state other than a state in which the licensee's place of business is located, if the transferee meets in person with the transferor to accomplish the transfer and the sale, delivery, and receipt fully comply with the legal conditions of sale in both such states, and any licensed manufacturer, importer, or dealer shall be presumed, for purposes of this subparagraph, in the absence of evidence to the contrary, to have had actual knowledge of the state laws and published ordinances of both states. So the bottom line is that while this may be mildly possible for a lever action rifle, a bolt action rifle, a pump action shotgun, the FFL is going to be presumed by federal law to know the laws of every single state in which they might end up delivering that firearm to. Translation, they're not going to stick their necks out on the line like that. And if I was advising any FFL, I would also tell them not to stick their necks out on the line. Instead, what's going to actually be required here is that the FFL in the state in which you're purchasing the firearm, and in all likelihood is going to contact an FFL in your home state. They're in all likelihood going to inquire as to whether or not this is even a firearm that could be lawfully owned in that state. And even if the answer is yes, then they're going to be shipping that firearm to the FFL in your state for you to complete the delivery paperwork there. Now, the bottom line is when you take a look at the application of this law does not apply to, bolt action rifles, lever action rifles, pump action shotguns. But hey, why the heck would you need to travel out of state to buy one of those? The types of firearms that you're most likely to travel out of state to purchase, because your state now bans them, are firearms that unfortunately federal law is not going to permit an FFL to sell to you because of your geographical location. And again, my experience is that FFLs, they don't mildly comply with these rules. They absolutely strictly comply with the letter of the law each and every time. So the bottom line is if you are intending, like, I'm just going to go out of state and buy one of these firearms that they ban in my state and bring them back home. Listen, there probably is state law that's going to make that illegal. There's probably going to be federal law that's going to make it physically impossible to accomplish that task. Listen, we'll go ahead and we'll link up the statute down below so that you understand what the FFLs face here and the fact that, candidly, their business license is not worth that one transaction that you may want. If you got any other questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information is also down there in the description box. Now, in the meantime, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe.